Hey there, Twins fans. My name is Seth Stowes of Twins Daily, twinsdaily.com, welcoming you to another edition of Twins Spotlight. Tuesday, the Twins added two pitchers to their 40-man roster, both Travis Adams and Marco Raya. Tuesday night, we were able to get a hold of and chat with Travis Adams about his experience as far as getting that call and the big deal that being added to the 40-man roster is. For those that didn't see that, my big thing is that it eliminates one barrier to the big leagues. It's one thing that they don't have to do to get you to the big leagues. So it is a big deal. I mean, obviously, there's other little things like, a little bit more pay in the minor leagues. But the big thing is that, you're on the 40-man roster and the team doesn't have to get rid of someone else to add you. You're already added. And I know that sounds a little business sidey, but unfortunately, that's the reality of it. So we're going to be joined in just a minute by the other pitcher that was added on Tuesday, Marco Raya, who had a terrific season in Wichita, made 24 starts, and then ended the season with one start in St. Paul at AAA in a hitter's environment and tossed 5 shutout innings. So pretty impressive there. He was added to the 40-man roster the other day along with Travis Adams. Real quick, I know we're live on Facebook, on Twins Daily's Facebook and YouTube, and I think Twitter. So if you want to be involved or simply send your congratulations to Marco, leave it in the comments at Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be sure to point those out and go from there. But without further ado, you're sick of hearing from me. That's 2 minutes of me talking that you could have been listening to the star of tonight's show, and that is none other than Marco Raya. Marco, thanks again for doing this tonight. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. So I got to ask, here in northern Minnesota, we've got the snow. We just got a little bit of snow here yesterday. How's the weather down in Texas?
I mean, right now, if I'm being honest, it's perfect. Today it was sunny with I think it was maybe 60 degrees, 55 degrees around there. So it's just perfect. Can't complain at all. Definitely not the Minnesota weather up there right now.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, but I guess that's why we love it up here. Um, Well, I want to talk about this week's news. Obviously, Tuesday was the day where teams had to add players to their 40-man roster. If not added and with certain criteria, a player could be left unprotected for the Rule 5 draft. Well, you're not going to be taken in the Rule 5 draft because you got a pretty important phone call. Tell us a little bit about, where you were at and when you got that call, who gave you a call, and what, without giving away too much, what that conversation was like. Were you expecting the call?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was expecting it, but I was definitely aware that I might get a phone call within the next couple days. But I was actually in the middle of a workout on Tuesday morning when I got the phone call, and I mean, pretty much the phone call just was just congratulating me and informing me that I was put on the 40-man roster, and I mean, I couldn't be happier.
And Drew McPhail is the one that gave you a call, right? The Twins minor league director.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think before we were on, you mentioned that you were working out at the time already, which I think has to impress the minor league director. But what are you doing at this point? I'm assuming there's not a ton of throwing yet, but is the rest just getting your legs and arm kind of physically ready, or what are you focused on here as we are just about hitting Thanksgiving and end of November?
Yeah, well, I mean, the throwing isn't too crazy right now, but we're definitely starting to ramp up a little bit as of right now. But I mean, as of right now, it's just the main focus has just been on the weights, and just getting stronger and maintaining the weight that I'm at right now, which I believe is I've felt the best I've felt in my career right now. So right now, that's just my goals is just maintaining the weight and just getting stronger and faster.
When you were drafted, I know there were a lot of comparisons physically to Jose Barrios. Um, similar height, similar build, similar arm motion, kind of a lot of similarities. But how would you say, obviously, he's grown into being a pretty solid major league pitcher. How would you say your progress physically and just maturity wise over the past, what, 4 years since the Twins drafted you. What are some of your biggest things that you're proud of kind of advancing in yourself?
Mhm. Um, I believe that this past season, this 2024 season was by far my best one yet. Not numbers wise, it wasn't obviously it wasn't my greatest season, and I definitely can agree with that. But process wise, I feel like this was definitely my best year. Just learning of mental side of the game, like on the mental side of the game, my mistakes that I did in between every start, and just picking like every pro and like con from every start and just working on both of them throughout the season. And by the time I ended up in the last week in AAA and made that start, I feel like I was a completely different pitcher, and I was just able to I was able to just control things, and obviously just be able to control what I could control in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, that's literally all you can do. So that's the maturity factor that probably people don't necessarily understand. It's not easy, but it's part of what you have to deal with. Again, we're talking with Marco Raya. He was added to the Twins 40-man roster earlier this week. Obviously, a big day for him and the family. Let's go back to last off season. If you were to look at where you were at a year ago, what were maybe one or two things that you focused on last off season, whether it was physical or a pitch or developing or tweaking or whatever it is that you were working on last off season to bring into the 2024 season?
Yeah, last off season I was mainly focused again like on my weight and just my body and getting stronger. And like the pitching side, obviously, yes, I was working on like my mechanics and like my pitch types and things like that. But my main focus last offseason was mainly in the weight room. And going into 2024, the main thing for me, it was just staying healthy all year and just staying healthy and staying on the field. And leading into this offseason, which is going to be a little bit more focused on like the baseball side of things. So I mean, definitely, I feel like definitely the work I put in last offseason helped me big time going into 2024 season. But definitely, I feel like like I said before, I feel like 2024 was definitely my biggest and best process year.
Very cool. You had two pitching coaches at Wichita this year. Carlos Hernandez, former big leaguer with the Astros, um, and then DJ Angle, who's relatively new to the organization the last couple of years, and then managed by Ramon Borrego, who I think has the utmost respect of everybody in the organization, players included. Talk a little bit about those three and how they were able to impact you throughout the year. Obviously, each has a little bit of a different role in your development. The manager probably isn't giving you specific pitch advice, but talk a little bit about your coaches and kind of what they bring to the table.
I mean, yeah, they did a lot for me. Like, I mean, when I mean a lot, that's probably an understatement. I had a ton of conversations with all three of them, and this past season they helped a ton with just like advice and just on and off the field. Really, just like in general, just they helped me a ton this season, and I feel like why they're a huge part of why I am in the position that I'm in right now.
Very good. Um, so I want to ask about this, and I mean, obviously, it's something people talk about, and that was how you were worked into the season, and that was starting out generally 3 innings at a time, three ups and downs, and somewhere around 45, 50 pitches. Then there was a stretch where it was 4 innings, ideally, depending on how things going, of course, and maybe 55, 60 pitches. And then ultimately, I think your start with St. Paul, which was Lake Wichita at the end, often you were right there at 5 innings and 75 pitches. So is that something you expected at the beginning of the year? I know you did some of that last year. And how much are you involved in the conversation about how to go about getting you to an innings mark where next year you're probably, maybe 125 innings instead of 90, or, building yourself thinking long term instead of just short term sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with them, and they just went over the plan. They went over the plan with me of what my plan was and what they were planning to do and how they were planning to take me. So I was aware of what was going on, and I mean, it's uh it's it's uh it's just a thing, something I had to do to gradually build up and obviously be able to stay healthy and stay on the field. So I mean, it worked out, and I'm just ready to get ready and get on the back on the mound in 2025.
It seems like a strategy that this maybe this front office or this pitching development group is doing, but they kind of did something similar with Bailey Ober, and he's had a fantastic career, and he's for the most part stayed healthy. Um, and even with like a Charlie Soto down in Fort Myers this year, not so much about how many innings you go per game, but making starts all season. How important was that for you to make 25 starts instead of maybe missing a month here just to get back on innings? How important is it to just be out there every fifth day?
I mean, it was very important to me. It was actually like super huge. That was my biggest goal starting the season is just to stay on the field and stay healthy and make every start possible. So when the season started, that was like I said, that was my main goal, just stay on the field. And I mean, the plan that we had set over the course of the season, definitely helped me stay on the field. And with me being down my full first year, I felt like I definitely needed to stay on the field for like a full year and show that I can stay out on the field all season long.
Absolutely. So when Marco Raya is on, when you're feeling it and you're whether it's getting strikeouts or quick outs, however you choose to define success, what's working in your repertoire? What pitches, or is it a mentality, or is it some sequencing, or what do you think works best or puts you in your best, most likely successful track?
When I'm in the zone, when I'm attacking the zone, that's when I believe I'm the best. And I mean, this past year, I feel like I mostly just beat myself with the walks and things like that for the most part. But I mean, I truly believe that when I'm in the zone, I'm pretty on and hard to beat.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the stuff has always been there. Let's talk a little bit about that stuff. But before we do, again, to those listening, and it looks like we've got well over 300 people listening here live. If you're on Twins Daily YouTube watching or on Facebook, please feel free to leave a comment and or a question, and we can share that with Marco as well. Offer up your congratulations or ask him all about his fastball or something. So I'm going to ask you all about your fastball. Two seam, four seam, a little of both, or what's your intent with that pitch?
Leading up to 2024, I was only a four seam guy, and
Okay.
then about halfway through the 2024 season, I started throwing that two seam slash sinker in there. So now I'm starting to. I mean, now I'm like I got both in the pitch mix.
All right. So then, secondary pitches. Are you are you breaking ball, cutter, slider, changeup? What are say your best secondary pitches?
I mean, my this past season, the 2024 season, the curveball was a huge pitch for me that was able to help me get back into counts and things like that. And then obviously that slider is that punch out pitch. So and that cutter was really good to me this past season for like just using it as a setup pitch. And that changeup is the one that I'm really attacking this off season. I still obviously still need some work on it, and being able to trust that and throw it in the game a lot more.
So if I'm correct, I understand that you really just started working on the cutter like in spring training or maybe before the season. What's the process for you, along with coaches or whoever else, to not only work on it in the bullpen, but to get to the point where you're comfortable enough using it in a game or in a big spot in the game eventually?
Yeah, I started throwing that cutter in spring training actually this past spring training, and I mean I got the hang of it pretty quick, and I was able to control it, and I felt comfortable throwing it. So I started the season throwing it, and I threw it all year, and it was a huge part in helping me this year and progress, obviously, and like on the pitching side of things.
So if you were to say there's one thing you'd really like to work on as you look to this off season, once your throwing program kind of hits full tilt, is it mainly just tweaking the pitches you have? You mentioned the changeup being something you want to continue to develop. Is it that kind of a thing, or you also mentioned throwing strikes? And I don't know how you work on that without overthrow. I mean, repetition, 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 while not blowing out your arm in
Hmm.
November, December.
Yeah,
So, what
yeah.
are some of those things you're working on in order to try to put yourself in a good spot for 2025?
I mean, yeah, you said it perfectly. Like how do you work on command without making too many throws? So
Right.
this past actually during the season, I my walks were like up, and I was walking quite a few guys. So what we started doing was I just started throwing to a target every time I threw a baseball. Was it whether if it was tossing, a bullpen, long toss, like no matter what it was, I was always throwing to a target. So I was always just training my mind and my body to throw to a target. So whenever I got back on the mound, I had the strike zone obviously as my target, and I was just trying to hit that target every single pitch. And so it's just really like target based drills.
So, even when you're just playing catch, you're not just playing catch. You got intent with that.
It's a
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a great point. Yeah, why not be efficient with your throws? Little bit about you then. What's your pregame go to as far as a best meal?
funny thing you asked me that is this whole season. I obviously I threw every Friday. I actually ate Chick-fil-A for pregame every Friday.
That was the first thing that popped in my head that you were going to say. What do you go with? Is it the same meal within Chick-fil-A every time?
Yeah, I've always had the same meal, even if it isn't on game day. I rarely switch it up.
Okay. But if you're cooking for yourself at home, does that happen? And are you a good cook? And what's your go-to for yourself?
During the season, I we don't really cook too much other than after the game if the post game isn't too great. But during the season, we don't really cook too much other than breakfast. But if I mean I'm not like Chef Ramsay or anything, but I definitely can make some chicken and things like that. It's like something simple.
Okay. All right. We got the Foreman grill going or something like that, right? How about music wise? What do you mix it up, or is there a go-to musician or singer or whatever it is that you listen to pregame to get you going?
Uh-huh. Well, I'm bilingual, so I mean, my playlist really is all over the place. Like, I'll
Yeah.
get one Spanish song, and then one an English song, and then I'll get one fast Spanish song, and then another fast English song. So it's just really back and forth. But I really just bounce around between like Bad Bunny and like Kendrick Lamar and guys like that, like for game days.
You mentioned that. How important for you personally is being bilingual? I mean, obviously, you grew up on the border in Laredo, so that's probably you were just speaking Spanish from birth
Hmm.
and English. And on a baseball team, that has to be equal parts a good thing because you can speak to 99% of your teammates pretty clearly. But are you the go-to guy when people need interview requests and stuff too? So I imagine you're doing double duties sometimes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was it was well when I was in double A, it was me and Jarrell, since Jarrell speaks both languages as well.
Okay.
Jarrell
Okay.
Ortega.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was both of us. If Jarrell wasn't there, they got me. If I wasn't there, they got Jarrell. So it was like that's the not the bad side about it, I should say, but just the part that like you have to translate for everybody. And then funny story is at the beginning of the season, Emmanuel Rodriguez, he had an interview with the news, but it was in English, so I had to help translate, and that was like one of the first times that I had to translate an interview. So I was struggling at the same time that he was doing it. It was crazy.
What's the biggest challenge though? Is it trying not to speak in third person or first person? Or, I mean, that to me is what would be the most difficult is taking what they're saying about themselves,
Hmm.
relaying it, but being what they say. So that's got to be a challenge.
I think me personally, I think it's just switching from English to Spanish like in a split second. and having to say what he just said in Spanish and say it in English, I feel like that's the harder part for me. I feel like I still had to like process it a little bit to be able to
Yeah.
translate it like correctly. So that was a to me for me that was a challenging part is just being able to translate it 1 second to the other.
You mentioned that you're not back in Laredo, but in Texas. Talk a
Hmm.
little bit. What are some of these things that you do away from the game in the off season? Obviously, like we've talked about, you can't throw all the time, and you can only work out X number of hours a
Hmm.
day. What else keeps you busy in the off season?
A whole lot of golf.
Oh, all right. Are we good? Are you good?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm too great, but I'm all right.
Well, so I was talking to Travis Adams the other day, and he said that he and Pearson Ole are probably the top guys.
They are very good. Both of them are very, very good.
All right. He tried to say it and sound humble, but I'm like, if it's true, it's true, right?
No, yeah, when you play golf like those two guys, I feel like you definitely can have some room to talk.
Absolutely. Do you have a workout partner? Are you working with some other guys whether Twins organization or else others?
Yeah, I'm actually and our my trainer for the off season is Stephen Hopkins, our AAA strength coach.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he's our trainer, and I actually train with Reggie Grace. He trains with us, and he's actually my roommate. We live together, and Kalen Culpepper also trains with us.
Okay. Wow. First round pick
Yes,
and
sir.
you and man, you got prospects all over the place there. Um, you actually mentioned St. Paul. I almost forgot to
Hmm.
mention you made the one start at the end of the year. The Wichita season went a little longer this year, but then when that finished, there was one more week of St. Paul games. How important was it for you to just get one start? One game at AAA, whether it was just mental or just to be in the atmosphere or to be around Toby and
Hmm.
others that are on that roster. What did it mean to you to get that one start?
It was huge. It was huge when I found out that Corey and I were going up there for the last week. I was pumped. I was stoked. One just to get the experience, obviously, of being up there, but being around an older clubhouse as well, and just getting used to that type of environment, and just really getting some knowledge off of those guys that have been in the game longer than I have and yeah, just the overall experience and just seeing how it is to throw on the mound there in AAA and to see what next year is going to be like. So it was definitely huge for me, and I was excited for it, and I couldn't have gone better for me,
It
in my
really,
opinion.
I mean, it really couldn't have. 5 innings, I think one hit, no runs.
I
Can't
believe I gave
remember.
up. I believe I gave up like 5 hits, but it was no runs, no walks.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant. No walks is what I meant. And then I think 4 strikeouts working with Chris Williams. Um, but I want to say that the Twins have really created a pitching, I want to say pitching pipeline. I don't know if that's totally fair yet, but you pitched with a lot of really good pitchers. So I'm always curious. You guys are obviously teammates and in many cases, pretty good friends. You're cheering for each other, and yet you're competing for, I mean, literally 5 spots in the big leagues, or 13 spots if you go starting at bullpen.
Hmm.
Um, so how is that? How does that work for you? I mean, you saw Zebby Matthews move up, Andrew Morris. We talked about Pearson and Travis, Corey Lewis, you talked about. There's a lot of good pitchers. So, I mean,
Hmm.
that's another reason to say, hey, you should feel pretty good about, being added to the 40 man to tell you how they feel about you. But yeah, what is that environment like where you're pushing each other, your friends, your teammates, and competitors?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think too many guys think of it too much as competitors. I feel like it's more so of a brotherhood once we get to season and we're around each other every day. So it's really, for the most part, it's just really learning off each other and picking things off of each other. Because I mean, every player, every guy has their thing, their cues at work, their drills at work, and their like just their knowledge that they have of the game. And I mean, like you'll never know everything about baseball, so like you'll forever be the student in the game. So just really picking guys' brains all the time and just learning off each other and I mean, there's so many opportunities like that come up. Like I know there's only like 5 starting spots, and then obviously like or 13 in total with the and like in the relievers and stuff like that. And or I don't know exactly what the number is, but like there's just so many opportunities, and like I that's why I believe it's not many of us really see it as competitors, but more so like just as like brothers and like trying to learn off each other and things like that and help each other get
That's
better
that's
because
fantastic.
we all
It's
have
the
the
right
same goal.
attitude to
So
have. Right, exactly. And you're obviously all very good. You don't get to double A or triple A without being a really, really good pitcher and baseball player. I asked this to Travis the other day. You have been really a starting pitcher your entire life, even into this year. I know this year Travis had a few games out of the
mhm.
bullpen with some piggybacking. You actually started, I think all of your games were starts. But if the Twins came to you next season in say mid June and said, "Hey, we need a bullpen guy for the next 2 weeks," do you say, "Nah, I'm a starter," or do you say, "Okay, I'll go to the big league. I'll be
I
okay
mean,
working in that role"?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd obviously I'd love to start, but if I mean Rocco, whoever it may be, came up to me and asked me if I could throw in the bullpen for a couple of weeks for the big league team, I mean, of course I'm gonna say yes. It's just whatever it takes to get to help them get wins up there and obviously make playoff runs and things like that, and try to go in some ball games.
Have you had time? Have you thrown maybe live BP against any of the big leaguers, say Buxton, Correa, whoever, Wallner? I'm sure you've maybe even been a teammate with at times. A lot of those guys you played with at some point, or at least spent a lot of time with in the spring. Are you looking forward to that day where not only you get the call, but you get to be part of that group too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited. I can't wait for the day that comes, but obviously till the end, just taking it one day at a time and just waiting on the call. But I mean, so far I haven't thrown to Buxton or Correa, but I've thrown to guys like Miranda, Eddie Julian, Warner, um, and a couple other guys that I've thrown to before. But I've definitely faced some of those guys on that side.
Absolutely. I think the Twins can be very good again next year. I mean, people may question them now, but it ended bad last year. But I think with the pitching, not only that we started seeing last year, but with pitchers like yourself, Travis, Adams, and really some other guys throughout the system, I think there's a lot of reason for Twins fans to be excited. But you have a big reason to be excited. This off season. The other day was a big day, a good step for you. Who are some of the first people you told after you got that call, or did you just keep it to yourself?
My first phone calls were mom and dad for sure. And they told the rest of the family that they can never keep anything in. So I just had to call them, and everybody else knew.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Well, I'm going to cut it there because I've taken up enough of your time this evening, but I really appreciate you doing this.
Of course.
Again, it was kind of one of those things you don't want to bother a person and they don't get added,
Oh
but at the
no, you
same
don't
time,
worry. It's totally fine. Thank you for having
very
me on
cool.
here.
Absolutely. So with that, we'll be in touch and hopefully things go well. Enjoy your off season and best
Thank you.
wishes going forward. So
Likewise.
without further ado, thanks again to everyone for listening, and we'll continue to do these twin spotlights. Maybe Marco can do a little recruiting in his workout class. There are workouts of people that could maybe come on here later. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and as always, go Twins.